"You have no say in this house," my son said, voice sharp enough to slice the morning quiet, even though the deed with my name on it had been recorded 3 days earlier. He said it in my kitchen, his former kitchen, standing over the island I'd just wiped down with lemon cleaner. Sunlight hit the granite, bright as a truth he didn't want to see. The man I raised was daring me to argue inside the home I had quietly bought to keep a roof over his children's heads. I didn't raise my voice. I just set the receipt tin on the counter with a soft metal click. He flinched anyway. This is how I learned my own son thought I was a guest in a house I now owned. Quick pause. Subscribe, hit like, and drop your city in the comments so I can say hi next time. I'm Linda Carter, 66, retired elementary school secretary, and I keep my life in neat systems. Labeled bins in the garage, a pill organizer that snaps tight, passwords printed small and tucked under the bread box. I was married 42 years, until Walt's heart gave out last fall. After the casseroles in the flowers, my son Evan said I should come stay a while with him and his wife Kelsey out in Gilbert, Arizona. Help with the kids, save on my condo fees, heal. I believed him. Day 2 in their house, I opened the freezer for a bag of peas and saw a folded HOA letter rubber-banded to a frozen pizza. Final notice of fines. Trash cans visible, Cottonwood Trails HOA. $250 plus $25 a day. Evan laughed it off. "They send those to everyone, Mom." He showed me a meme and kissed my forehead. I tucked the letter into my tote anyway. By week 3, I was grocery shopping, school drop-offs, and garage sweeping. I keep busy when I'm grieving. It's how I breathe. One Tuesday, I moved their laundry to switch the load. In the dryer lint trap, I found a pink slip from Desert Sun Bank. Payment past due, second notice. I set it on their hall table under a scented candle, so they'd see it. "Stop snooping," Kelsey snapped that night, picking up the slip with 2 fingers like it burned. "This is our home. You have no say." "I put milk in your fridge today. I have some say." They both laughed, too loud. Evan asked if I could float them until his next commission hit and suggested a small loan from the life insurance. I told him no. I was done being the polite helper who makes everything easier. A week later, the house went quiet when I got the call from a neighbor. "Are you folks okay? The HOA guy was here again." I glanced at the calendar. Committee hearing Friday at 9 a.m., listed on a postcard shoved under a placemat. I marked it in blue pen. HOA fines. Money leaked from them. It wasn't a hole, it was a torn seam. When I sat at the breakfast bar to balance my own accounts, old habits, my eyes kept snagging on the bills. Desert Sun. Utility shutoff warnings. A bright orange intent to lien from the HOA. I lined them up and pressed my palms on the cool granite until the panic went flat. I told myself they were young. They'd fix it. I could help with meals and school runs, not mortgages. Then my phone flashed an email. "We've received your application for a home equity line of credit." My heart thudded. I don't apply for loans. I clicked. The bank had my condo's old address, my social security number, and a digital signature that resembled my name if you squinted your eyes and forgot how letters behaved. The date read Tuesday, 2:12 p.m. I was at choir practice Tuesday, 2:12 p.m., humming alto and smoothing the hymn pages. I called the fraud line. The agent's voice was patient and clipped. "We'll freeze this, Miss Carter. You'll get a letter. Did you authorize anyone to apply?" "No." She asked. "Family member?" "No," I said again, though the word tasted untrue. That night, I scrolled the Ring doorbell app. Tuesday, 2:12 p.m., my camera captured Evan and Kelsey hauling a box labeled tax papers into the foyer. The notary record the bank later sent me, names redacted but timestamp visible, said signer appeared at 2:12 p.m., different side of town. same minute. I printed both. I circled 2:12 p.m. in red. The next morning, I made pancakes in my cast iron skillet because the kids needed something ordinary. Noah, 8, asked, "Grandma, why did Daddy call you a guest?" I flipped a pancake and didn't answer. When I finally asked Evan about the HELOC alert, his face went blank, like a student caught copying. "Someone must have stolen your identity," he said too fast, scratching his jaw. "Happens all the time. Happens to people whose sons know their mother's maiden name." I kept my voice steady. "Mom, you are overreacting." He went for a run. I sat with my receipt tin and my church choir binder and made a simple decision. I was done asking permission to keep a family safe. I called a realtor I trusted from church and asked a quiet question. What happens when a house is in trouble and a mother has liquid funds and patience? She asked for an address. 2 days later, she slid a printout across the coffee shop table. Pre-foreclosure activity. HOA liens stacking like dirty plates. A refinance attempt denied. "You could buy it," she said carefully, "if you're sure you want to. Cash is strong. You'd need a title company. You'd need to be very sure."
I was very sure. I didn't march. I folded, stapled, and signed. Saguaro Title scheduled a Friday morning closing. I dressed in navy and wore Walt's watch. The closing packet felt like a heavy book. By noon, my hands hurt from the pen. By 2, a young woman at the title office handed me a neutral folder and said, "Congratulations, Miss Carter." On Monday, the county showed my deed was recorded. I screenshotted the line with my name and the date. 3 days later, Evan yelling me across my own kitchen. I didn't announce it right away because I wanted to do it right. I wanted to set him down like I used to, when he came home with a scraped knee and the truth squirreled behind his teeth. But the morning he told me I had no say, that folder practically burned a hole through the pantry shelf. "Let's talk," I told him, setting 4 printed pages on the island. "This is my home now. We can make a plan." "You bought our house?" Kelsey's laugh broke high. "With what, your sympathy points?" I didn't answer. I slid them a simple house agreement I typed with size 12 font and wide margins so the words could breathe. I asked for something small, a modest monthly rent, proof of utilities paid on time, cars parked inside the line so the HOA would stop snapping photos. There was a 90-day runway and a clause about no overnight guests without telling me first. Candid, kind, clear. Evan skimmed it and smirked. "You're not our landlord. I'm your mother," I said. "And the owner." He pushed the papers back with 2 fingers. "We're not signing this." That night, the freezer smelled like garlic knots. Kelsey stormed around clattering pans, opening and shutting drawers as if the sound could erase a recorded deed. I set my pill organizer in the cabinet above the stove so I could reach it without climbing. The next morning, it was gone. I found it in the garage, balanced on a paint can behind a stack of boxes labeled Christmas. Petty. It told me everything I needed to know. 2 days later, a woman messaged me through Facebook. "Hi, I paid $500 deposit for the upstairs room. When can I move in?" I stared until the words wobbled. My son had listed rooms in the house on Marketplace. Photos of the kids' bunk beds with smiling emojis. Utilities included, owner overseas. Cash deposit to a Venmo handle with a cactus emoji and his birth year. I called him into the kitchen. "You're scamming people with rooms that belong to your children." "The market's hot, relax." I contacted the woman. I apologized and sent back her deposit out of my own pocket because I didn't want a stranger standing on my porch with suitcases and tears. I kept the Venmo screenshot with his cactus handle in my folder. He started avoiding me in hallways like I was a hall monitor. He'd whisper with Kelsey on the patio. I'd look out and see them hunched over her phone, faces lit blue. The kids asked if they could sleep at Grandma's new condo. "Soon," I told them, rubbing circles on their backs. On Thursday, my phone lit with another bank email. Fraud unit update. The Echelac attempt was formally denied. They attached a copy of a power of attorney someone had uploaded with my name and a signature that leaned hard right, looped like a teenager's. The notary print time read 11:48 a.m., May 3rd. Ring showed my lunch date with Irene at 11:49 a.m. at Panera, the baguette still warm in my hand. Another circle, in red, another printout in the folder. Stay till the end, I'll show the truth. That weekend, I heard a wet sound in the kitchen at 6 a.m. I padded in and stepped into a puddle. Water beaded from under the sink like a sweating glass. Evan stood there shirtless, toweling the floor. He said, "Pipe burst," not looking at me. The plumber wrote a polite note on his carbon copy invoice. Peck's line, cleanly cut, not a burst. He said it with a soft voice for me alone, eyes on his boots. I tipped him extra and took the paper straight to my folder. On Sunday, the HOA president left a voicemail. "Mrs. Carter, your son promised the trash cans would be screened, but nothing's happened. Fines accruing." He sounded exhausted. I saved the voicemail. I was building something simple, a timeline any grandmother could follow. Monday morning, I taped a small list to the fridge. Trash cans, sprinklers, mailbox keys. Little things that make a house look loved. Kelsey peeled the paper off and wadded it up. "You're not the boss of me," she said. She threw it in the sink. It floated a second and sank. Tuesday, I put a lemon cake in the oven because sugar can butter a hard conversation. I set 3 plates and waited for them to come home from work. They were late. At 8:14 p.m., my phone pinged. "Your home at 1526 Honeysuckle Way has been listed. Redfin." There it was, your home. A fresh for sale by owner with photos from my living room, my quilt folded on the sofa, my hydrangea print on the wall. Price too high by $100,000. Contact number, Evan Sell. I stood so fast my chair scraped. I called him. He didn't answer. The kids' backpacks still leaned against the baseboard. The cake cooled, sinking in the middle. I printed the listing. I tucked it into the folder with the bank emails, the plumber note, the HOA voicemail transcript, the Venmo screenshot, the Ring timestamps. I called the non-emergency police line and explained, "No, I'm not requesting a squad. I'm asking how to keep the peace when my son tries to sell a house I own." The dispatcher asked if I felt safe. "Yes," I said. Though my hands shook, I felt ready. 10 minutes later, a group text landed in my messages. "Evan to me and Kelsey, don't come back tonight. We're out with friends."
"You left the kids?" I wrote. "Kelsey's mom got them," he replied. I exhaled and waited in my clean kitchen and watched the dotted bubbles of someone typing, then nothing. At 9:33 p.m., I heard the garage motor. The door rolled up like a stage curtain. Evan walked in first. He didn't look at the folder. He went straight to the breaker and flipped the switch. The kitchen went dark. "Now," he said, "you listen. This is my house. You have no say." I reached to the counter and turned on the little battery lantern I keep for monsoon storms. The light was small, steady, and more than enough. I set the folder between us, slid it forward a fraction of an inch, and said, "Evan, sit." He didn't. The folder wasn't a trap. It was a mirror. I started with the simplest page, a single line from the county site with my name, the parcel number, and the recorded date. "This is the truth," I said. "You're standing in a house I bought. I did it to steady us, not to humiliate you." Kelsey reached for the paper. "You forged this," she said, though her voice wobbled. There's a pitch people hit when their mouth outruns their mind. I slid over the closing statement with saguaro title's letterhead. I didn't forge anything. Evan stared at the laminate floor. "You had no right." "I had a responsibility," I said, "to 2 children asleep down the street, to a woman who raised you and knows what it costs to keep electricity running in August." He jutted his chin toward the folder. "You think paper makes you queen?" "No, but paper keeps us honest." I showed him the fraud emails and the power of attorney with my slanted imposter signature. I showed him the notary timestamp and the ring clip. He looked at the table like it might swallow him. "Anybody could have made that," he said. Not even he believed it. I didn't demand confessions. I didn't ask why. I just said, here are our options. We set clear terms. You treat this as your home and pay a fair rent while you figure out your next step. Or you move to a place you can afford by the end of summer. I'll help you find it. If you sabotage my house, if you keep scamming people for deposits, if you try to sell what you don't own, then we'll stop having this conversation in my kitchen. Evan shoved his chair back. You'll throw your own kid out. I said, I'll protect my peace and your children's. We didn't sleep much that night. In the morning, I packed the kids' lunches, PB&J, carrot sticks, a note with a lopsided heart, and set them by the door. I walked Noah and Lily to school myself because I needed to watch them walk into a building where adults still took attendance and told the truth. When I came back, a new surprise waited. Every interior door locked. Bedroom, closet, pantry. Petty again. A muscle in my jaw jumped. I brewed coffee. I called a locksmith. He was done in 20 minutes and shook his head at the neat little twist of a paperclip wedged in the pantry latch. He left me 2 new keys and a respectful distance. At noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hi, this is Daniel from Sun Mesa Realty. I'm calling about your home on Honeysuckle Way. Evan had been efficient. He'd bumped the fake for sale by owner to an agent. We'd like to schedule showings this weekend. Can you confirm? Yes, I said. I can confirm the person who called you isn't the owner. I emailed Daniel a scan of my recorded deed. I didn't add the part where my son once brought me finger paintings that weren't his. He called back 10 minutes later, apologizing. Texts in a rush. We've canceled the listing. I printed that too. My folder was now a binder because I know how to upgrade when a project grows. Keep watching. There will be justice. That evening, a paper slid under my bedroom door. Notice to owner, we are tenants at will and have rights. Something copied off a website. Jagged margins, legal words like wallpaper that peel if you pick at them. Evan highlighted quiet enjoyment with a yellow highlighter. He had never underlined his homework at 8. He did now. He texted, "You can't control everything, Mom." I responded with 3 sentences. Trash cans behind the gate. No more strangers sending deposits. Bring the kids home at 8. The next day, water again. This time the upstairs bathroom. A swollen seam in the ceiling. The plumber sighed softly and wrote, "Toilet line loosened by hand." He didn't add who might have loosened it. He didn't have to. I signed the invoice, slipped the pink copy into the binder, and baked cornbread because petty destruction makes me hungry. Kelsey upped the tempo by posting on the neighborhood page, "Elderly parent overstepping. Advice?" The comments were a mix of sympathy and sighs. I didn't answer there. I don't litigate in comment sections. I called her mother instead. "Your grandkids need dinner at 6. Bring them or I will come get them." She brought them. We ate cornbread with honey and laughed at a joke Lily told about a dog who forgot how to bark. We rinsed plates. Just us girls. On Saturday, I went to the HOA board meeting. I wore my choir blouse and carried the tidy binder. I signed up to speak. I said, "I'm the owner at 1526 Honeysuckle." I didn't add, "I'm also a mother trying to hold the line without breaking the rope." I played the voicemail from the president on speaker and slid over a copy of the plumber's notes. I showed proof of an order I placed for a small screen to hide the trash cans. I didn't mention Evan's cactus Venmo handle. I didn't have to. The room went soft. Grown-ups recognize other grown-ups.
On Monday, a letter arrived in a neat window envelope. Desert Sun Bank. Investigation result. The HELOC attempt had been flagged and closed. They thanked me for reporting quickly. They said appropriate actions were taken. I don't know what that means inside a bank, and I don't need to. It felt like a door clicking shut I didn't have to lock. That night, Evan came home late with a new TV, bigger than the previous tantrum. He stood in the entry and looked at me like we were wrestlers warming up. "I'm not paying you rent," he said. "Then you're making your choice," I said. I set a simple written notice on the table. Dates clear, font plain. I kept my words short and polite, because that's how I won arguments at an elementary school for 30 years. I added a post-it. "I will help you pack. I will watch the kids while you look for a place. The sooner you choose peace, the easier this gets." He didn't answer. The next morning, his SUV was gone. So was one of Walt's old toolboxes I had stored in the garage. I texted, "Bring the toolbox back. That belonged to your father." He wrote, "It's a toolbox." I stared at the bubbles until they disappeared. I took a photo of the empty shelf. I printed it on my inkjet and slid it into the binder behind "Plumber, cut line." Midweek, a knock at the door. A man in a polo and clipboard. "Here to look at the hot water heater for the home inspection?" Evan had scheduled an inspection as if a sale were marching along. I showed the man my deed through the screen and asked if he wanted peach iced tea for the road. He smiled, embarrassed. "No, ma'am." He left. I called my church friend Irene and asked if she'd sit with me at the dining table when I spoke to Evan and Kelsey again. "Witnesses calm people," I said. She brought oatmeal cookies and her reading glasses. We sat like we were making a scrapbook. When they came home, I kept my hands folded. "Here's what we can do. Option A, you stay. Modest rent, yard picked up, bills on time. We revisit in 3 months. Option B, you move, and I help you with the deposit somewhere smaller. I will also pay for counseling sessions for both of you, because something is broken that a bigger TV won't fix." Kelsey stared at me like I spoke in Greek. Evan reached for a cookie, hesitated, took one and bit it like it might explode. "You want to control us," he said, crumbs on his lip. "I want the children to sleep without hearing adults kick doors." Kelsey wrapped her arms around herself. "You think we're bad parents. I think you're overwhelmed and making reckless choices, and I think I can help without being your doormat." He threw the cookie in the sink. "We're not playing landlord-tenant with our mother. We're playing adulthood," I said, "and the field has rules." The next morning, I woke to the beep of the alarm. The garage door had opened at 5:37 a.m. I took my lantern and went out. Evan stood by the water heater with a wrench, a face of stubbornness I recognized from age 4, when he folded his arms and refused peas. "Don't," I said. "You will flood this house, and the only people who will cheer are the mosquitoes." He dropped the wrench. It clanged on concrete and startled us both. 2 days later, Kelsey texted, "Fine, we'll leave by the 30th. You'll be sorry." I didn't respond to the last sentence. I sent a thumbs up to the first. I took a photo of the text and slid it into the binder. Every mother I know has a binder somewhere, whether it's paper or memory. Mine was just literal. The last week, they didn't make it easy. They tried to sell the stainless fridge on a resale app. I saw the listing while drinking tea. I went into the kitchen and taped the original sale receipt from Home Depot to the door. Included in purchase, paid by me at closing. When the buyer showed up, I met him at the driveway. "This isn't theirs to sell," I said, holding the paper. He shrugged and left. I peeled the tape off the fridge carefully so it wouldn't leave residue. On the 30th, I asked a neighbor to be present. He stood by the mailbox, hands in pockets, the good kind of witness who doesn't need to speak. Evan and Kelsey loaded the SUV with boxes that swallowed their life. Noah cried quietly, holding his dinosaur backpack. Lily clung to Kelsey's leg and then, to my surprise, ran to me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I bent slowly, knees cracking, and hugged her until she had enough. "We'll see each other," I whispered. "I promise." "Don't click away. He'll get what's coming." As they backed down the driveway, Evan rolled down his window. "You'll die alone, because hurt people throw darts in the dark." I didn't flinch. I waved at the kids, not at him. The house exhaled when they were gone. Air changes. It's real. You notice it when you've lived in a storm. I walked room to room and made a simple list. Patch 3 nail holes, order a new shower curtain, schedule a yard crew. I ran the dishwasher. I set my pill organizer on the counter like a flag. A week later, the HOA guy stopped by. "Trash cans look great," he said, almost shy. "Thank you." I laughed. It felt like we were both releasing a breath we didn't know we'd held. 2 weeks later, Desert Sun Bank's fraud unit called again. "We've closed our investigation," the agent said. "We'll be taking internal action." She couldn't say more, and I didn't ask. Boundaries aren't just for families. I hung up and planted 2 pots of hydrangeas by the porch, because color helps a house forgive.
A month after that, I rented the house to a school nurse and her husband, a quiet pair who dropped off a packet with pay stubs and a note from their pastor. The nurse walked through the rooms soft-footed and asked if she could plant basil by the back fence. "Please," I said, and meant it. I moved back to my condo because I like my small routines. I kept the house as a steady investment and a safe place for Noah and Lily to visit. I showed up every other Friday with pizza and board games, and the nurse set out extra plates like I was family. The kids ran through the hall, and the sound was joy instead of dread. As for Evan and Kelsey, their glow online faded. The bank closed their accounts and sent a letter about misuse. Kelsey's post about elderly abuse didn't land how she hoped once neighbors remembered my binder and my quiet at the HOA meeting. A friend of theirs told a friend of mine that Evan had started seeing a counselor through his job. He called me from a new number one afternoon and left a voicemail I saved. "I messed up. I'm working on it." 2 sentences, enough to pause the ache. We worked out a visit schedule for the kids with words like drop-off and pick-up that pinch the tongue. We kept the exchange in a grocery store parking lot because neutral ground is kind. When he started showing up on time 3 weeks in a row, I told him I noticed. He cried then, the quiet kind, and wiped his face with the heel of his hand. At church, Irene squeezed my arm and said, "You did that with paper and patience." I told her I did it with a binder and boundaries. We both laughed, and then we sang. On the first cool morning of fall, I made pancakes in my cast-iron skillet again. I flipped them for Noah and Lily and poured maple syrup until it made little lakes. "Grandma," Lily said, mouthful, "can we plant basil today?" We did. We dug a neat square near the back fence. Noah read the plant tag like it was a library book. The nurse waved from her kitchen window and gave us a thumbs up. When the kids left that evening, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my binder one last time. I didn't need the papers anymore, not really, but I kept them. Not as weapons, as reminders, as proof that you can be gentle and immovable at the same time. If you're a woman my age reading this, maybe with a grandson's cereal bowl on your counter and a stack of envelopes you've been meaning to open, here's what I learned. Keep your systems. Keep your receipts. Say small sentences out loud in kitchens where people want you to shrink. "No, this is mine. That's not true." You don't have to storm. You can turn on a small lantern and be the steady light that changes the room. This isn't legal advice or a manual, it's just my experience. I hope it reminds you that a soft voice can carry far when it's backed by truth on paper and love that won't lie, even to itself. And when someone says, "You have no say in this house," you can smile and answer with a line so simple it sounds like a lullaby. I do now.
Your watch to the end. Be click here. You will hear another story from my grandma.